All right, guys, here we are at not Cognaratio Part One, but sorry, Bregans Part One. We just had the Cognaratio, the story about the plot. Now we're going to see what happens after this. We're going to see what a horrible fellow Salvius is. So let's just see. So let's this is a little bit longer translation. We'll see if we can uh, hopefully not take too long to get through it, but we'll still try and do so thoroughly. So, first sentence is Atum warika postkom hank aram narawit klamawit. So then Verica, after he narrated this story, shouted. Right? So the main clause is tum warika klamawit, perfect tense verb. Postquam introduces a temporal clause. Narawit is also perfect tense, and hank is a demonstrative pronoun. It's a feminine accusative form of hic, hike, hawk, modifying rem. Now, rem is, it's feminine. And remember, we don't translate it as thing. We're going to translate in context as this story. So then Verica, after he narrated the story, shouted, loquax, antiloquax, dominus advenit. So loquax, anti-loquax, these are both vocatives. The master is arriving. Vocate sarvos in aria. So vocate is it's an imperative plural from woco. So it is, he's referring to both of these guys and ordering them. So he said, call the slaves into the courtyard, right? So we get the word arena or area. Sorry, not arena. We get the word area from this. It's the central area in a house. So call the slaves into the courtyard. And we also notice that in plus accusative, it is into. It's not, they're not already there, they're going into it. Right? So ego eos inspicere volo. I want to inspect them. So ego is our subject. Volo is their main verb. Inspicere is our it's our complementary infinitive that goes with volo. And eos is another demonstrative pronoun that is referring to the slaves. And it's translated as them, and it is an accusative plural. It's from is-id. Servi ad ariam caleriter cor correrunt quod salvium timebat. So the slaves rushed quickly to the courtyard because they were afraid of Salvius. So Servi is the subject. Correrunt is the perfect plural perfect form of coro. This is one of those unusual words that has this extra ku added to the front. It's something that happens in Greek. It's called reduplication. Just know that that's from koro, which means to run. Celeriter is an adverb. Quod is a subordinating conjunction for a causal clause. And timebant is imperfect. Right? So, servi in ordines longos se instruxerunt. So the slaves drew themselves into long lines. Okay, so the slaves is the subject. Instruxerunt is a perfect tense verb. Se is a reflexive pronoun. So they're doing it to themselves, which is why we have se there. It's an accusative plural. So they drew themselves, and what do they draw themselves into? Again, we've got this in plus accusative right there. So they aren't already in long lines, but they're going into long lines. We have that motion, and that's why we're using accusative. And we get the word order from ordines, right? So, and longos isn't modifying it. So the slaves drew themselves into long lines. Vilicus per ordines ambulabant. So the overseer was walking through the lines. And so imperfect tense verb, and then that's per plus accusative. It's an accusative of extent in that prepositional phrase. Servos inspiciebat et numerabat. Okay, so he was inspecting and counting the slaves. Both are imperfect tense verbs, and the subject is still an implied vicus. Right? So he was inspecting and counting slaves. Subito exclamavit. Suddenly he exclaimed. Perfect tense verb. That's an adverb, by the way. Ubi sunt ancillae. Where are the female slaves? Remember, ubi is an adverb. Nullas ancillas video. I see no slaves, which we probably wouldn't translate it like that. We'll translate it as I don't see any slaves. Right? I don't see any slaves. These are accusative plurals. They're first declension feminine. Okay. Ancillae domino nostro cubiculum parant. respondet loquax. So loquax responded, perfect tense verb. The female slaves are preparing the bedroom for our master. Okay, so the paankilai is a nominative. It's a nominative plural going to parant. Cubiculum is the accusative direct object, and then domino nostro is it's a dative, so it's a dative of advantage, right? So they're doing it for him. And also nostro is going to be a possessive pronoun, so it's our master. Ubi est volubulus noster. So where is our volubulus? Noster is another one of those possessive pronouns, and notice that it's in the nominative here. It's a third declension nominative, modifying volubulus. Inquit varica, said Verica, or asked Verica. Again, perfect tense. Ego volubulem videre non possum. I'm not able to see volubulus. Notice that the possum is the main verb, and videre is the infinitive, the complementary / prolative infinitive, and volubulum is the accusative direct object, that infinitive videre. Ego is a personal pronoun, it means I. Volubulus vinere non potest. Quod cenam parat, responded Antiloquax. So Volubulus is not able to come because he is preparing dinner, responded Antiloquax. So volubulus is the subject, potest is the main verb, venere is that complementary infinitive, quod is a adverbial clause, it's a causal clause, so that's a subordinating conjunction. So because parat is a present tense, right, and responded is a perfect tense again. Bregans in mediis servis stabat. So Bregans was standing in the middle of the slaves. We'll just say it literally means in mid slaves, but that doesn't quite make sense. It's these are ablative plurals, by the way. So mediis is modifying slaves. In English, we don't formulate the idea in the midst of in the same way. We can't just do it with a simple adjective. So we'll have to translate it as in the middle of. So Bregans was standing in the middle of the slaves. Stabat is imperfect. Canem engentum secum habebat. So he had a huge dog with him. Okay, so habebat, notice that I translated it as had. It's an imperfect tense verb, but it doesn't make sense to say he was having. So he had huge dog with him. Secum it's literally cum with say. So cum takes that ablative of accompaniment, but we often say secum together, and it's translated more or less adverbially. Notice that's why it's color coded like that. So when you see secum, it just means with him. So ecce varica, look Verica. So that's going to be ecce is an interjection, and varica is going to be vocative. Rex cogi dominus domino nostro hunc cane misit inquid Bregans. So Bregans said, perfect tense, King cogi dominus sent this dog for or to our master. So King Cogigdubnus sent this dog to our master. Okay, so misit is a perfect tense verb. Hunk is that demonstrative pronoun, meaning this. It's from hekai kok. It is nominative. Sorry, not nominative. It is accusative masculine, and it's modifying canem, and that third declension, right? This dog. Domino nostro is going to be a dative, right? So it's a dative to or for him, probably for his advantage, or could be indirect object. And nostro is that possessive pronoun again. Let's see this next bit. So, canis ferocissimus est. And Bregans is still talking, and he said, the dog is very fierce. He's a very ferocious dog. And ferocissimus is a superlative adjective. Bestios optime agitare potest. So, he, the dog, right? He, she, or it, however you'd like to describe it. It would be a he because it's a ferocissimus. He is able to hunt or chase beasts, so wild animals, optime, very, very well. So he's able to hunt wild animals very well. So we get the word beast from bestias. It's the accusative direct object of agitare, which is in turn, the prolative infinitive that's going with potest. And optime is an adverb. Subito, vigenti equites ariam intraverunt. So, suddenly, 20 horsemen entered the courtyard. Subito is an adverb. Vigenti is going to be going to be a numeral. It's a nominative plural right there. It is declining properly. So 20 equites. Equites, we get the word equus, equine, and equestrian from this. It means horses. So equites, it can mean both horsemen and knights in Latin. Autem is the accusative direct object, and intraverunt is a perfect tense verb. Primus erat Salvius. First was Salvius. Okay, imperfect tense verb. Postquam ex equo discendit varicum salutavit. So after he got down from his horse, he greeted Verica. Okay, so our main clause is actually salutavit Varica. Right, so that's a perfect tense verb, and Varica is the accusative direct object. Postquam is a temporal clause introduced by postquam. Ex equo it's an ablative of separation started by ex, and descended is a perfect tense verb. We get the word descend from this. Servus inspecere volo inquit Salvius. So Salvius said, perfect tense verb. Salvius said, I want to inspect the slaves. So main verb plus a superlative infinitive, complementary infinitive, whichever one you prefer. Tum Salvius et Varica per ordines ambulabant. So then Salvius and Verica walked through the lines, or were walking through the lines. Ambulabant is technically imperfect. So we'll probably, at least for now, we'll keep it as were walking. They were walking through the lines, and per takes ordines, which is an accusative of extent. It's a prepositional phrase right there. Tum just lets you know that there's still going on with the story, and both Salvius and Verica are the subjects. Pueri puelaequa in primo ordine stavant et dominum suum salutaban. So we have a couple ways that I guess we could translate the pueri et puelaequa. It literally means boys and girls, but this can also mean children, because slaves didn't have their own freedom, so they're often referred to as more or less with the terms of children. And this is probably a way for Romans to also think that, to remind themselves that they had a sort of a duty of care. I know that sounds perhaps a little bit weird, but that they should in fact be paternal or maternal to their slaves, and not treat them too badly. That was something that the Romans actually did believe in concept, even if not always in execution. So we'll just say the boys and girls in the first line were standing. So the boys and girls were standing in the first line, right? So the younger slaves, and they were greeting their master. So the boys and girls were standing in the first line, and they were greeting their master. Okay, so in primo ordine is an ablative of location. Stabant is imperfect. Salutabant is also imperfect. Donum sum is the accusative direct object of that second verb, and sum is a possessive pronoun. Cum pueris stabant gemini. Okay, so the twins, loquax and anti-loquax. So the twins were standing with the boys. So with the young boy slaves, that is to say. And cum pueris is going to be a ablative of an accompaniment or association, and it's an imperfect verb. Also note that the word Gemini is where we get the word the Gemini, right? That's the astrological sign, because those are twins. Salve domine inquit anti loquax. So, hi master, said loquax, and domine is going to be a vocative. Salve is obviously a imperative verb. Salve domino inquit anti loquax. Hi master, said anti loquax. Bregans similac salvium vidit. Domine, clamavit. So Bregans, as soon as he saw Salvius, shouted or said, Master, master. So simlac is an adverb. So as soon as, vidit is perfect tense, as well as clamavit is perfect tense. Okay, last little bit of this translation. We're almost there, guys. Salvius servo nihil respondit. So Salvius responded nothing to the slave. So he said nothing to his slave. So Salvius is the subject, respond is perfect tense. Nihil is the direct object there. It's indeclinable, but we know it's going to be accusative. And servo is going to be the dative indirect object. Bregans itrum clamavit salvi, salvi, specta canem. So Bregans again shouted, Salvius, Salvius, look, a dog. He's very excited. This is why I like Bregans. Ithrum is an adverb, clamavit is a perfect tense verb. salvi are going to be vocative. Specta is going to be a singular imperative. So he's yelling at him, say, look at the dog, look, he's so excited. This is great. Salvius saeviebat, quod servus erat insolent. So Salvius was raging. He was absolutely fuming. He's still mad about everything that's happened. So Salvius saeviebat. So Salvius was raging because the slave was rude. The word insolent from insolence. So saeviebat and erat are both imperfect. Quod is introducing an adverbial clause that is causal. And insolence is third declension, nominative. Servus insolentimos es, inquit Salvius. So you are a most rude, you are a very rude slave, said Salvius. Bragantum ferociter pulsavit. So he fiercely, he roughly punched Bregans. So he ferociously punched Bregans. Ferociter is an adverb, we can tell because of that ter ending, and pulsavit is perfect tense. Bregans ad terram dicedit. So Bregans fell to the ground. That's odd. It takes an accusative in its motion towards, because he's actively falling towards the earth. Decedit is perfect tense. Canis statim ex ordine erupit. So the slave, the dog immediately broke away from the line. So ex ordines, that's an ablative of separation. Statim is adverb. Erupit is perfect tense verb. So et salvium appetivet, and attacked Salvius. So the dog immediately broke from the line and attacked Salvius. Petivet is also a perfect tense verb. Non nulli servi ex ordinibus eruperunt canemque retraxerunt. This is an interesting little phrase in Latin, non nulli. It literally means not no. It's we would think of this as a double negative, but they didn't really think about that in the same way in Latin. They were totally okay with this. It means not no, so that means a few. So several slaves broke away from the lines and pulled back the dog. So we get erupt from this verb, by the way. Both of these verbs are perfect tense. Ex ordinibus is ablative of separation, but it's an ablative plural here because it's multiple lines. And retraxerunt, we get the word tractor from this, or retract, actually, from the same verb, retraho. Okay. Salvius postquam se recepit gladium distrinxit. So Salvius, after he recovered himself, is what it literally means. So after Salvius, after he composed himself, drew his sword. Okay, so first of all, the main clause is salvium gladium distrinxit. That's a perfect tense verb. And there's no word for his, so I'm just adding it back in there, or adding it in there for clarity in English. Gladium is obviously the accusative direct object. Postquam introduces a temporal clause, subordinated. Recepit is also perfect tense, and se is that reflexive pronoun. So he's doing it to himself. He's composing himself, putting himself back together. Okay. Istum canum interficere volo inquit Salvius. So Salvius said, I want to kill that there dog. That dog. We'll just say that dog. So istum is from a particular type of demonstrative pronoun called ista, and it means it's. Well, there are three main demonstrative pronouns, three types. There's hic, which means this. There's illa, which means that, and then there's ista, which means a further that. It's not a close that. It's intentionally trying to distance yourself. You only really say it in Latin if you don't like something, right? The closest thing that we could possibly say in English is that there, that there friend of yours. I don't trust them. Don't translate it like that when you translate your Latin. Just translate it as that. But know the connotation. Know that it's intentionally supposed to be negative. And also know that volo is our main verb and interficere is our complementary infinitive. Illud difficile est. So inquit Bregans. So that is difficult, said Bregans. And illud is from ille, right? But it's the neuter form. right? So, because he's talking about the situation, and situations don't really have genders. It's just a neuter situation. The whole situation of killing the dog would be difficult in theory. Rex Covidumnus amicus tuus tibi canum dedit. So King Covidumnus, your friend, gave the dog to you. So Rex Covidumnus is the king, the subject, and amicus tuus is the appositional phrase describing that king. Tuus is going to be a possessive pronoun, modifying amicus. Tibi is a dative, so it goes with do. Do will, the verb to give will usually take an indirect object in the dative, and canum is the direct object. And dated, by the way, is a perfect tense verb. Ita. Ita possum. So, ita vero, pardon me, I skipped a line. Ita vero, difficile est, responde talvis. So ita vero is one of those things that you see a lot. It's one of those stock phrases. It means, yeah, sure, yes, truly. It literally means, yea, verily. But I don't think that it would sound very good if you translated it like that. Maybe in the 15th century AD, and you might get away with that, or Shakespeare or something like that. But not when we're going to write anything, any assessments in this day and age. So that is difficult. Difficile est. Responded Salvius. Yeah, that is difficult. Respond Salvius. Also notes responded is perfect tense. Sed ego te punire possum. But I am able to punish you. So possum is the main verb. Punere is the complementary infinitive, and te is the accusative direct object of punere. It's a personal pronoun in the accusative. Ego is a personal pronoun in the nominative, and it's the subject. It means I. Illud facile est. That situation. So that is easy. So illud is again neuter. So ille facile est quod servus meus est. That is easy because you are my slave. So meus is a possessive pronoun modifying servus, and quod introduces an adverbial causal clause. So as we can tell, Salvius is not a nice fellow. Alrighty, guys, that is the end of this translation. Hopefully the video wasn't too long, and hopefully you got all the questions that you need answered from it. I will see you in the next translation of Stage 13.